Your perfect tutor, Mr. Gilbert CJ. So in this video, we are going to look at civil society and media in governance. Now the subtopics that we are going to focus on are one, the introduction to this topic. Then we'll look at the characteristics of civil society organizations, classification of civil society organizations, and the roles of civil society organizations. What is a civil society organization? This is also referred to as non-governmental organization. Non-governmental organizations, NGOs. So this refers to those non-military, non-governmental organizations and individuals who make it their business to promote and defend the basic ideals of good governance. This does not only involve the institutions or organizations, it can also be individuals as long as they make it their business to promote and defend the basic ideals of good governance, making sure that good governance is being followed. There is democracy in the country. This can also refer to organizations and social relationships outside of the control of government. Outside the control of government. So when you just hear the word civil society or non-governmental organization, just know that this has nothing to do with the government. They are non-governmental, non-military. Now, let us look at the characteristics of these civil society organizations. I hope you will understand them better. So one, it is not guided by a regulatory frame. There is no institution that regulates a civil society organization, not even the government itself. So these, they control, they run themselves. Then they are non-profit making. They are not aimed at making any profit. They do not generate any profit. They are only aimed at promoting and defending the basic ideals of good governance. Draw support from well-wishers such as donors and other institutions. So how do they make their money? Because as you know, they need some funds in their daily running of their organizations. But where do they get their monies from? They draw support from well-wishers. They shape their own nature of needs and interests. They shape their own nature of needs and interests. Draws membership from formal and informal organizations and associations. So when we talk about formal, we are talking about the public, things to involve the government. But informal, we are talking about private institutions. So they can get membership or members from both formal and informal organizations and associations. Those are the characteristics of the civil society organizations or the non-governmental organizations. Now, these non-governmental organizations can be classified into several classes. So let us look at some of the classifications of civil society organizations in Zambia. Classification of civil society organizations in Zambia. So the following are examples of civil society organizations. Number one, we have international organizations. International organizations. So, for example, we have the Inter-African Network for Human Rights and Development, AfroNet. It's an international organization. So when you look at this, the AfroNet, it has those characteristics that we talked about. Characteristics of a civil society organization. One, it is a non-profit making organization. Two, draw support from well-wishers. Three, it is not guided by a regulatory frame. Media Institute of Southern Africa, MISA. Transparency International Zambia. Women in Law and Development in Africa. Women in Law in Southern Africa. These organizations are referred to as a chapter. Now, what is a chapter? A chapter is a branch of an international civil society organization. A branch of an international civil society organization. So the second class of civil society organizations is the pressure groups. The pressure groups. These are also called interest groups. Interest groups. They are organizations formed to influence government policy and decisions on a particular subject. to influence the government policy and decisions on a particular subject. For example, we have the Citizens Forum, the Oasis Forum, Committee for Clean Campaign, the Zambia Consumer Association. They are aimed at influencing the government policy. For example, when you talk about the Committee for Clean Campaign, what do? We can say the government has come up with a policy to promote a clean Zambia, to bring about a clean and healthy Zambia. Now, this committee, the Committee for Clean Campaign, CCC, will be aimed at influencing that policy that the government has introduced, making sure that they have implemented what they said, they execute what they plan. That is the function of civil society organizations, to promote and defend the basic ideals of good governance. Pressure groups. Number 3, we have civic organizations. So civic organizations are concerned with issues of civic education, human rights, and good governance. So when we say they are concerned with issues of civic education, don't just think about the subject, civic education. No, thinking about everything that has to do with the government operations and other things. Human rights and good governance. For example, we have the anti-voter apathy program. So this talks about elections, voter apathy. Voter apathy is when the registered electors do not turn out for voting. That is called voter apathy. Foundation for Democratic Process, FODEP. Non-governmental organizations coordinating committee. Operation Young Vote. The National Movement Against Corruption. Zambia Civic Education Organization. All these are called civic organizations. So the only trick about civil society organizations is that you have to differentiate them. When they ask you about civic organizations, you have to give examples from this class. Don't give examples from international organizations. Then you have made a very big mistake. So you have to know, you have to separate them to say these belong to civic organizations, these are under international organizations and pressure groups, just like that. Before we have women's groups. So these are concerned with promoting and protecting women's rights, just from the name itself, women's groups. For example, Forum for Women Educationalists of Zambia, FAWEZA, National Women's Lobby Group, Women for Change, Women in Development, Young Men's Christian Association, Young Women Christian Association, Zambia Alliance of Women. All these are concerned with promoting and protecting women's rights. They are not aimed at generating any profit. They only want to promote and defend the basic ideals of good governance. In this case, the rights of all women. Number 5, we have professional associations. These are formed by people in a particular professions to promote and to protect their interests. They are formed by people in a particular professions to promote and protect their interests. Particular professions. For example, teachers, lawyers, doctors. Now those people come together and form a civil society organization, which will be referred to as a professional association. I don't mean teachers should form one organization with doctors. No, we are saying particular profession. So teaching is a profession on its own. So teachers will make their own association. Doctors will make their own association. Now, what will be the aim of that association? To promote and protect their interests there. For example, if they are not being paid well, they can talk to the government through the same association. For example, we have Press Association of Zambia, PAZA, the Law Association of Zambia, LAZ, Women in Law and Development in Africa, and Zambia Independent Media Association. So when we talk about the Law Association of Zambia, it is a group of legal representatives called lawyers. They are aimed at promoting and protecting the interest of all lawyers in the country. So these are called professional associations. Apart from that, we also have industrial organizations. So these are primarily formed by people in the same industry to safeguard their interests. For example, labor movement, also known as trade union, Zambia Association of Manufacturers. So there we're talking about professions, but here it's industry. Zambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Zambia Cross-Border Traders Association, Zambia Federation for Women in Business, Zambia National Farmers Union. So when we talk about the ZNFU, Zambia National Farmers Union, it's a group of farmers who come together to promote and defend the interest of every farmer in the country, making sure that all of them are receiving farming inputs. So these are called industrial organizations. These acronyms are very important. ZAM, ZASC, ZCBBTA, ZFWB, ZNFU. They can just bring it. What is the meaning of the acronyms ZAM under industrial organizations? Then you scratch your head. So you have to know these things. Then lastly, we have religious organizations. Religious organizations, as you can see just from the name itself, you can tell to say these are aimed at promoting and defending the interests of religions, different religions in the country. For example, we have Charitas Zambia, formerly the Catholic Commission for Peace, Justice and Development, Council of Churches in Zambia, CCZ, Islamic Association of Zambia, Young Men Christian Association, Young Women Christian Association, Zambia Evangelical Fellowship. So we have one young women and one young men. Now let us talk about the roles of civil society organizations. The roles of civil society organizations. What is their importance? What do they do in the country? Of course, we said they promote and defend the basic ideals of good governance. Now let us talk about their roles in detail now. They act as agents of democratic change. For example, by advocating for constitutional forum, gender equality, and free and fair elections. So they act as agents of democratic change. Then when they see that there is gender inequality, they will speak out about that problem. There is no free and fair elections, they will speak out about that problem. So they act as agents of democratic change. They act as channels through which individuals can participate both in government and community decision-making processing. Because if you have a complaint against the government, you can complain through civil society organizations. You can address the government through civil society organizations. You just go to a non-government organization, tell them, oh, in our constituency, we didn't have free and fair elections. Civil society organizations can complain to the government. So it's like you have communicated to the government using that civil society organization. That's why we're saying they act as channels through which individuals can participate both in government and community decision-making process. They act as a link between the community and the government. Civil society organizations often transmit public opinion on various issues to the government, almost the same as the second point.